Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
3 former FBI agents fired last fall are now bringing a class action lawsuit, arguing their removals crossed a line with consequences beyond their own cases. Here to walk us through what the legal challenge could mean for agents working controversial investigations and for the Bureau itself is former FBI agent David Sundberg. Mr. Sundberg, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here.
Several former FBI agents have filed a class action lawsuit following their termination last fall. To start us off, what is the core legal claim they're making, and what specific actions by the government are they challenging?
I believe that might be well phrased as they are pushing back on the idea that they have been terminated for political retribution as opposed to the merits of their work.
They weren't accused of traditional misconduct, as you say. So according to the complaint, where do the plaintiffs say that established FBI or federal employment processes failed them?
Well, there have long been established processes in the federal government for federal employees. Those exist inside of the FBI within our own policies and through the inspection division and others. Then those broaden into DOJ policies and protections. And then, of course, merit service protections as well broadly to the federal government across the executive branch.
And what were the particular cases that these agents were working on?
Well, these agents were all assigned. What they have in common is their assignment to an investigation into the potential criminal conduct of President Trump.
And is that investigation still going on, or was it completed?
It is not. It was one of the special counsel cases that was ended when President Trump took office.
Had there been any complaints about these agents' performances before?
No, not at all. These were high-caliber investigators who performed admirably over many years.
Instead of pursuing individual claims, these agents filed a class action lawsuit. What do you think is the motivation there?
Well, I think that they've been all fired for the same reason. And as alleged here, that is really political retribution. And by filing together, they show that that is the cause for their terminations, not anything based on their individual merit or the way they did the job.
Is there an implication then that there could be other agents that could be covered by this case?
I think that's possible. This is not the first lawsuit we have seen regarding terminations inside the FBI, and they tend to be specific to groups of agents and or analysts who have been assigned to particular cases.
Do you think taking it as a class action suit poses any particular challenges for the plaintiffs?
I'm not an attorney, but I do believe that we have seen success in the past in lawsuits that bring in a group of people who suffered from the same ill effects that they allege in their lawsuit. In this case, agents all being assigned to one particular case, and that is what they have in common. The other thing they have in common is being excellent employees, and I worked with all of them. And they are alleging together that the merit systems that exist throughout the executive branch and certainly in the Department of Justice have failed them here. They were not given due process in those cases, and that by collectively coming together, they stand the best chance of fighting what they believe, and I believe as well, to be retribution based on political issues.
In your time serving as the head of the FBI's Washington field office, which you left in January of 2026?
The very beginning of February of 2025.
Did you ever see any cases like this?
No, I didn't. Now, recognize that I was removed from my position on day 10 of the second Trump administration, while there were still acting members in many of the important positions. So, for example, the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General were acting Attorney General and acting Deputy Attorney General when my employment itself was terminated.
I'm speaking with David Sundberg. He's a former FBI agent who served as the head of the FBI's Washington field office. So let's come back to this particular case. One of the key tensions in the case is the balance between the government's authority to manage sensitive national security roles versus longstanding civil service protections. How do you see this lawsuit asking the court to balance those two interests?
I think this has been a topic of interest for many, many years, and it's reflected in which groups of federal employees are allowed to organize or have union representation. And we see that the national security side can be excluded from some of those protections because of the type of work they do and the potential impact that would have on the continuity of that work. That being said, there are systems in existence which have, unfortunately, I believe, been reduced and are not used as frequently across the executive branch to protect these employees who can't organize in a different way or don't have the benefits that unionization might bring them. And so balancing these concerns is an ongoing effort for the United States government. It should be something that Congress is considering at all times. How do we maintain national security? How do we do the things we need to do to ensure there is not corruption inside of government at any level, all of the other work the FBI does, and how do we still have employees who have protection that is reasonable, not only for their own careers and their own livelihoods, but such that we don't degrade the workforce in such a way that we can then not provide the level of national security and crime fighting that we really need.
In your experience, what has caused the balance to shift to one side or the other?
Frankly, in my more than 2 decades in the FBI, I didn't see a lot of shift. Now, mind you, this speaks back to the sort of political arguments on the behavior of these agents, which, as agents that I supervised, I can tell you was excellent in the work they did. Special counsels lead those particular investigations, and the one that is at the heart and shared by these 3 agents was led by a special counsel. But all of the agents and analysts that join those cases, really that are assigned to those cases, come from the FBI, and in this case, all from the Washington field office, and I worked with them repeatedly. In my time, I haven't seen that balance shift until we reached the time where I was forced out of federal government. And it was these most recent actions that at least caused the most significant shift in how we are treating federal employees and looking at their employment. This is a unique case, but it doesn't stand entirely alone. There have been other lawsuits within the FBI filed prior to this one. And then largely across the executive branch, there have been other changes with regard to the treatment of federal employees overall. I would offer that this case is an example that fits inside a broader scheme of how this administration is looking at the employment of federal employees.
If the court ultimately sides with the plaintiffs, what precedent would that set for federal employees, especially those, as we've talked about, working on controversial or high-profile investigations?
Well, I certainly hope that the courts side with the plaintiffs, because we need the professionals within government, the investigators and the analysts, and frankly across other agencies, many different job families, to be able to do sensitive and highly consequential work for the sake of doing the work itself, regardless of who the subject of that investigation might be. Nobody can be above the law or a system starts to break down. And the FBI is the agency that has to investigate crimes, be they public corruption or other crimes that happen within the White House or within Congress.
Would you expect a ruling to apply narrowly to the FBI, or might it be extended to other federal law enforcement agencies?
I think a ruling in the case will initially be narrowly applied. However, it would serve as precedent, I would offer, for other cases and may set as precedent for other actions outside of legal cases, such as congressional action, legislation, updating or modernizing protections for federal employees.
Let's follow that last thread a bit. Given the concerns at the heart of this case, regardless of which way it turns out, what would you be looking to Congress to do to clarify the protections for folks in these kinds of sensitive positions?
I think it's incumbent upon Congress to modernize legislation, pass bills that will protect federal employees for the work they're doing while still recognizing that we may have different classes of federal employees based on the type of work. I deal with the national security implications of some federal employment that doesn't exist in other federal employment. And we can see that now in the ability for some groups to unionize and the others to not. Where we can't have them unionize, or if they're not allowed to organize in such a manner, then the merit service protections, and frankly the attempts to reclassify federal employees to make them easier to fire or to remove their merit service protections from the executive branch, in this case within the White House, by executive order, that is something Congress should be weighing in on and legislating to protect.
I've been speaking with David Sundberg. He's a former FBI agent who served as the head of the FBI's Washington field office. Really appreciate your insights into this important case.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.